In this video, we're going to give a quick overview of the athletic.net interface. We're also going to look at some of the new features you can see whenever we release version 5.0, some new features regarding the import from file feature. So one thing you'll see that's new is if you click on Create Race and do From File, you now have the option to pick a delimited file or an Excel file. And what's nice about this is you can pick a file that has many races in it, not just a single race. And so here is all the different file types that are available to download from athletic.net. And the way I've written this is you can pick any one of these files, doesn't matter which one. So if a meet director were to send you a file that is not what you expect, but it did come from athletic.net, there's no reason to worry. You can still import it just the same. Um, and so in most cases, I hear that this excel.csv file is the most commonly used, and so that's the one we're going to import today. So let's go ahead and double click on that, and you'll see that it asks you what the delimiter is. Now, I could have opened that in Notepad, took a quick glance and see, this is a comma separated file or a semicolon. Basically whatever the delimiter is, you can always change that to whatever you need. Let's go and put a comma in there. That's the most commonly used, and I hit OK. And then it'll ask me, is the first row a column header? And if you're not sure what to click, you can hit yes or no. And if you get it wrong, you can always reselect the file down here. And then, of course, the second time around, pick the opposite answer. And so this screen looks a little different. I tried to clean it up a little bit here. And also you'll see a lot of new features that are in here. My goal, by the way, was to make it to where I did not want to write an interface for every individual file that they offer, because over time this will become like other programs that are out there, and it takes months to learn because there's so many different options. And so I wanted it to where the feature you're already used to using, this import from file screen can handle just about anything you throw at it. And so the one drawback, of course, of that is, it's not just simply picking a certain file type and you're done. This you will have to move some columns around, but it should take you less than a minute with any file type you get. So the way this works is you can let me explain the format of the data we got here. So this excel.csv file, the very first column, is not needed for the results file that you send to athletic.net. So it appears that this column simply represents maybe like an internal race ID for their system. So we don't need that. I'm going to just remove it. So anytime you left click on a column, you see you got different options in here. And so you can left click into remove. One thing you'll see with version 5.0 is if you remove a column, the software can see, okay, well, if you don't have enough to fill out the template, it'll automatically create a blank placeholder or a blank column for you, and that's what it did here, which worked out well because we don't have a race date in this file, and so I had to put a placeholder there anyway. And so if you click on a column, by the way, to sort it, so right there is sorting ascending or descending, and here is sorting ascending. So we got 6 total races in this file. So the second column in the file is what's called, I think, the division ID. We're going to call it the race ID. This is a field that does get pushed up to the results file, so you want to keep that there. And so whatever you put in this field, and by the way, if you don't put any values in here, the software will automatically assign, starting at 1, a race ID to put in the results file. But this file we have already has an identifier, so we're going to use it. Again, we don't have a race date. We don't really have a race name. We've got kind of a description of the distance. We also have a description of the category of runners that are going to be in it, but we don't have one that says like men's 3,000 meters or middle school men's 3K. And so let's make one. So my goal, of course, is to make it to where you don't have to open up any of the files and modify them before you pull them in. You can do all your alterations in here. So I can left click and then do either merge with the right on this column, or I can click column 4 and merge it with the left. The results are exactly the same. So what we're going to do here is we're going to merge this column with the one on the right, and it'll ask me, is there any characters you want to put between them? I'm going to say, sure, I'm going to put a space, hyphen, space. And then when I hit OK, you'll see that pushes those two together. And so, so now we've got a race here. You see it's 3,000 meters. It's a middle school 3K, and race number 1 is for female. And look, race number 2 is for male, but the name is exactly the same. I don't really want that, so I'm going to say, you know what, for these selected records. Now, there's 2 different ways to do this, so I'm just going to show you one way here. I'm going to highlight all the rows that I want to modify, and I'm going to click on it. Now, when you click on it, it assumes you also want to sort, so those records are still selected. So just don't let that worry you. But I'm going to do change column data, and then for those selected records, I'm going to make it say MS women's 3K. and then I'm going to add that to my list of available values that I can use to replace with. And so where it says middle school 3K for my selected rows, I'm going to make it say middle school women's 3K. And when I hit finish, you'll see that that's what it says. If I scroll on down to the boys race, you'll see that it still says middle school 3K. Now I can do the same thing, of course, with that and say, MS men's 3K. But I will show you another way to do that in a second that may be easier. All right, so that's a new feature, as you saw there, the ability to add your own value. Doesn't matter what it is, you can add anything you want in here and then replace existing values with your new value. So that's new. So the way this screen is designed to work is you simply drag the fields into their proper spot, and you don't have to line them up like I'm doing here, but I do that to make it easier to see, that you've got everything in the right spot. If you don't have a certain piece of information, for example, we don't have miles, you can either drag a blank column like you saw me do here, or like we don't have a bib number either. So I'm going to left click and do add column. That also adds a blank column. So either one of those options will take care of you. Um, we do have a last name, so let me drag the last name over. We do have a first name, so let's do first name. We do have a gender. And then we don't have, this file is a pretty bare bones file. We don't have all this other stuff up here, but we do have class, team, notes, and ID. So I'm going to drag those off to the near the end because that's, where we're going to need them eventually. Um, and then I'm going to simply make sure that we've got the class and team and everything in the right spot. So I'm going to kind of make these roughly the same size of the template. Again, not necessary to do the import, but it does help us make sure everything's in the right spot, and they are. So one thing I'll say too about this import is, let's say we did not have a race name at all, or if I left that column blank, the software will actually look, and they can tell it as it scrolls through these rows here, it joins together these first 6 template items, which you only see these first 6 template items if you pull up this screen from the Create Race menu item here. If you simply pull the screen up while you have a race already open, you see what you used to see in previous versions, which is simply bib number, name, last name, first name, sex, type, and all that stuff. Now, if your file contains multiple races, that's when you'll use that feature to import only the selected records. And so one thing that's also new is I can also select certain records. Let's say that you pull a file in, and the first row is a column header, but then they've also got a couple other rows with just some junk data before you actually get to the athlete information. The one thing that's new with this version, I can click any one of the records I want. Let's say these records here, and I can select remove, and it'll take those records out. So that's also new. So yeah, we are ready to import this data. One thing I was going to say before is, if let's say you don't have a race name in here, the software will. In fact, let's take it out for now. The software will look at the first 6 columns, and it will treat that. Let me go ahead and make this 6 columns here of data. So it'll treat that like a unique race identifier. So I basically join everything together as a string, and I pipe delimit each thing, each column. So it'd be one pipe, space, pipe, and so on. And so what I do is I join all that together, and I use that as a like kind of a unique key for that race. And so as I'm scrolling down, even if you don't have a race name, if I got simply 1 and 3000, all of a sudden now I have another one that's called 2 and 3000, then the software knows that's a different race. And so what's nice is that it also, while it's going through these rows here, it's also checking to see, hey, for this unique key for this race, is it only one gender or is it 2 genders? And so as you're going down, you can see that race number 1 is only females. And so even if you don't put a race name in, the software will go ahead and give you a race name that says like F-3K or 3000 meters. And so the software can actually give it a race name. That way, when you pull it up later, you're not left wondering, what is this race? And you have to actually go to the edit screen and try to figure it out. So that's a nice thing that's built in. There's lots of things that are built in to help figure stuff out for you. So for example, any variation of male, female, M, F, boy, girl, men, women, whatever, the software can figure it out and knows what values to put in there. If you're in a different country and maybe you've got a different language here for male, female, then of course you can do change column data. The software knows which column you've clicked on, and maybe where it says, your language's version of male, you can simply drag and drop M on top of it, and then do the same thing for female. Let me just let you see what that looks like. So this will show where it was this, it's now going to be this. Um, I'm going to close that out. And if I hit finish, though, of course, it will go through and change all the rows for you. So one final thing, I guess, with this screen is that if you put your mouse over any one of these these template items, you'll get a tip on what the program expects or how the program works with that. So um, let's see here. So that's kind of a nice little tool there for you if you need it. I think we're ready to import the data. So what you'll see here is when we click on import, here again is where you can see that um, because we're missing something critical. Now here we're missing the race date. There's no race date available, so the program pops up this little dialog. If any one of these fields that you see here, if there's no race name, race date, or if you don't have meters or miles, now you can have one or the other, and if you have a race name or date, you won't see this dialog. But if you don't have both meters or miles, the software will ask you pop up this little dialog so that you can put it in at that moment if you want. Now, of course, we can always go and edit the race later and fix it, but it gives you a chance to change that here. I'm going to go ahead and leave all the names as the default, but if I wanted to rename each one, I could do that. So I'm going to hit save, save, save. Now I'm leaving the race date just for today. Of course, you'll fix that to be something more realistic. Save, save. All right. So then it goes through now and it says, okay, well, you don't have bib numbers either. So which bib number do you start with? I'm going to start with bib number 100 for this race. In fact, we'll just do 100 for all the races. Okay, so we'll do 100. Oh, let's do 200, I guess. I think there's almost 800 participants in this race. So 600. So our data is now imported. And so if you look at the race, so now these new entries, I'll pop this up for you. Here's all the new races that were just pulled in from that file. So I can open up each one of these races. There's the starting at 200 junior varsity 5K. And again, you can look here and see, well, this is men. So if I want to go in here and rename this, I can say junior varsity, men's 5K. So it's easy to rename all this. But yeah, as you can go through and see all the races we just pulled in. Now you'll see that when we pull the races in, I'm going to assume if you're pulling in from athletic.net, or really if you're using this import from file feature, I'm going to assume that this is a track or cross country race. So I select that for you. I also set the scores as 5 and the displacers as 2. And I'm trying to think, now all the teams, of course, are pulled in. So a lot of stuff you need is already here. And that's, again, for each of the races. If you're familiar with the system, you know it's just as easy to time one race as it is to time 6 races. And so basically, now in most cases here, you can probably time one at a time or maybe just 2 at one time. But that's super easy to do. Now, I've already got a database here with results in it, so I'm not going to have you watch as I time a race. So let's just pull this one in. So you see some times here. So now we've pulled the races in. Now we've timed the race also. Now we need to create a file that pushes those races up. Now I will say in this database I use, instead of pulling the long name in as a team name, I pull the short name. So you'll want to select the long name whenever you're using this import from file feature. And by the way, I will show you here the import. Let's do delimited file, and let's go back to where all those files are at. You'll see here on this screen, um, like I said, we don't have bib number, last name, and all that stuff now. But again, if you wanted to pull in just the files you wanted, and by the way, the software is smart enough. Let's say that we've got this race open, and I want to pull in just the participant for that race. I can click on those, do selected records, and let's say that some of these or most of these are already in our race. The software is smart enough to not put in someone twice, so there's no worries there. But so let's close that out and let's actually get ourselves an athletic.net results file. When you click on view reports, that's one of the options you see at the bottom. And I'm going to select that I want included in this file all the races. And the reason why I pop this up is because you may have other timers timing races in different cities, and you guys may share a database, and you may see his races on there. So this will let you pick just the races you want, and hit continue, and then it'll ask you where do save that file. I'm going to save it on the desktop, and here in a second you see the results file is created. So let's actually view that. So here it is. Let's not view it in Notepad. Let's view it with OpenOffice. That way it's a little easier to see. Now this is the first time this new computer here. First time I've opened OpenOffice here. So this is going to be a semicolon delimited file. All right, now let me go ahead and make this. Okay, so yeah, I got place, first name, last name, gender, team. Now again, that would be the long name of the team with this database I just pointed to. I use a short name for some reason. Here's their time. Here's the division ID, kind of the race ID you saw before. And there is the grade for every participant. So that's the file that you get, and you can just upload that to their website, and you should be done. So that is a quick overview. There's lots of exciting things coming in version 5.0. Probably forgot to cover some of the stuff in the new import from file screen, but hopefully that's a good overview of how everything works. So hope you guys enjoy it.